Hey, True Believers, Englentine here with another episode of Comic Book Origins, the video series where we take a look at the very first comic book appearance of any comic book supervillain, hero, or team. This time around, we're taking a look at Bloodshot. It's got a movie coming out at the time of this recording, and it's from Valiant Comics in 1992. Created by Kevin Van Hook, Don Perlin, and Bob Layton. This is back when Valiant Comics was just everywhere, and they were dominating at the time. Now, I do have to admit, we're not really going to look at his first appearance. We will, but that's just one page in Eternal Warrior. We're actually going to look at his first full appearance. So, okay, without further ado, let's get this party started. Take a dive in the very first appearance of Bloodshot. First, we're going to look at the one page worth of appearance of Eternal Warrior, and then jump right on into Rise Zero. As promised, boom, Eternal Warrior number 4. I love this cover, always have. As a matter of fact, I was a big fan of Valiant Comics back in the 90s, and some in the 2010s. Lately, not so much, but when they first rebooted, I thought they were pretty cool. Los Angeles, California, July 1st, 1992, 6:33 p.m. It'll be good to take a shower and lie down for a few hours. I'll check in with Neville tomorrow. One more day won't hurt. And we see an arm grab onto the Eternal Warrior, throwing him to the floor. A gun thrust him in his face in there, ladies and gentlemen. The very first appearance of Bloodshot, saying, "Gillett Abrams, you're in big trouble." As always, I start off with the cover, and I gotta tell you, I love it. I've always loved this cover. I'm surprised it's not one of the iconic ones, but let's face it, Rye was not the most popular of the Valiant comic books back then. And I guess Rise Zero, even though it does have the first appearance of Bloodshot, I guess it's not serious enough to warrant that kind of fame. Anyway, let's get to the story. And ladies and gentlemen, the very first appearance of Bloodshot, it's basically the same as Rick Grimes. He's naked in bed in a hospital with a tube going where? Does he have a tube attached to his nuts? I guess it's if he pees or something? I don't know. Either way, the yellow boxes say, "My name is Rockland Tate, and I'm a geomancer, a keeper of ancient lore and power, a protector of the world. Let me tell you the story of the blood of heroes and how it changed the course of history. It's important that you know this, because without the blood, there will be no future for us." It began in 1992, and with another geomancer named Jeff. And we see Jeff looking in at the naked Bloodshot. Gosh, he's here, just like the vibes told me. So we find out Jeff, the Geomancer, is actually in the hospital to take Bloodshot's blood. He learned a whole bunch about the future from the Unity War, and he figures that he's going to help all of the Geomancers set things straight when he's discovered and kicked out of whatever hospital he's in. But when he's doing it, Bloodshot wakes up. So whatever doctor or scientist, I guess it was, drags the Geomancer to his friend, and he's like, "Who the devil is that kid? You know, we're going to have to call Osaka on this. You know, Master Owatsu's going to have kittens about this. Okay, little man, tell me what you're doing here, or you'll wind up in the organ bank." And Geomancer yells, "What you're doing is wrong. You're screwing up the timeline." And we see Bloodshot enter the room. He's free. And that's when Geomancer jumps out of the technician's arms. "Yeah, I'm getting out of here." And he says the technician managed to sound the alarm before his neck snapped like a twig. Bloodshot, as his creators dubbed him, was one bad mother. His silicon-based lifeblood gave him incredible strength. His mental powers were virtually computer-like, exacting, and awesome. His creators quickly found this out, but they made their discovery the hard way. And of course, he's naked lording it over a couple of dead bodies. And Jeff was dealing with more than he bargained for. "Hi, Gillett. I found the project, but there's something you ought to know. The security computer told me they're looking for you. Please be careful." And we cut several months later when members of Hardcore are talking about some him and she, and they're being very vague with the pronouns and everything. And at the end they say, "Well, what if he doesn't cooperate? Then we'll trash him." That's the last half of this particular page right here. It comes off as filler, like they just needed 3 more panels, so they put this. So we discover that Jeff has discovered a whole bunch of time anomalies, so he seeks out the help of Eric, but Eric's having none of Exo-Man of War, and he's having none of it because he wants to go dino hunting with Turok, who are like, hey, are you saying what we don't do is important? But the Geomancer's trying to get them to understand, and Eric's like, you'll be fine, we'll be back in a couple of weeks. So he does what any bright-headed boy would do. He goes and he searches out Bloodshot and just so happens finding him running away from an import store. And he says, there's bad times coming, lots of powerful forces in play that could be disastrous for the world. It's much more important than your need for revenge. And Bloodshot's like, could you be a little more specific, kid? And Jeff gave Bloodshot an earful. He told him the dark power of the corporation war between Harada and Hardcore and how the other economic powers that be were taking sides in the conflict. The planet was hovering on the threshold of dark times. So Bloodshot says, I want to hear more, kid, but first, I think you'd better duck. And as he says that, there's a huge explosion and it looks like the building collapses behind them. Jeff was relentless in his crusade to recruit help against the Dark Power. It was in the year 1999 that these events came to a terrible finale. The dark-vested hero called Shadow Man gave up his life to rid humanity of the Dark Power. All the heroes of the Earth gathered to pay their respects to their fallen comrade, and it was then that they all turned their weary eyes toward the future and the other wars that loomed on the horizon. Time passed, and the one called Archer became a guru of sorts. By the year 2020, his Archies became a symbol of peace and order in a turbulent war torn by warring corporations. And we see all of the Archies cleaning up the streets. One even stops a stranger. Excuse me, sir, that newspaper you dropped is a big step towards a life of disharmony and chaos. It might heal your karma if you pick it up. And ongoers just kind of look on and say, wow, they have got to be kidding. Archer knew, however, that whatever he was doing wasn't enough. Toyo Harada Harbinger Foundation was growing stronger every day, but for all of his power, Harada had grown very old, and he became obsessed with the secrets of immortality and took desperate measures to secure them for himself. And we see Archer staring over the city when Jeff comes in and tells him that, hey, Armstrong's in trouble, Harada has him, and Archer's like, dude, I owe him everything, so I've got to go and save him. Armstrong vanished from the face of the earth, never to be seen by anyone to this day. Where he went, nobody knows. Some say he went off-world. Others say he finally succeeded in drowning his troubles. By the year 2028, robotics and computers were the only defense against Harada's mental powers, and the ability to control those machines became an obsession to him. The former Harbinger renegade, known as Axe, was determined to possess the blood of heroes before Harada could. And we see Axe in the exo armor, or at least what looks like it anyway. You may have succeeded in evacuating the moon base, but saving yourself will be a lot more difficult. We see Bloodshot. Come on then, you pathetic piece of junk. I'm sick of you dogging my heels. Axe tells him, oh man, I could hear your blood singing to me. It's trying to control me the way you control other machines, but as you probably see, let me try that again. But as you're probably noticing, I could do anything you can do better. I could do anything better than you, they began singing to each other. Arm can't move, Bloodshot says. Use it before you lose it, Bloodshot, and we see an explosion that blows Bloodshot's hand off. Hey, a clean cut, good. Wouldn't want to lose any of that magic juice, would we? Axe says to Bloodshot, who just looks at him and says, just get it over with, bloodsucker. Okay, bang, you're dead. And we see Axe firing his laser towards Bloodshot. We flash forward to see the Eternal Warrior and the Geomancer investigating Bloodshot's death, finding no trace of the blood of heroes in him. Geomancer says, we've got to get back to Earth immediately, and hopefully I can pick up the Axe's trail there. We've got to find him, Gillid. If that blood falls into Harada's hands, it could end any hope of ever stopping him. By the year 2056, Axe's trail grew cold. He and the blood simply disappeared, although Jeff never stopped looking. Axe wasn't the only person of that era to vanish. Peter Stanchik, leader of the Harbinger Resistance, had also fallen off the face of the Earth. He had left his daughter-in-law and grandchildren in the care of his best friend Chris. Chris now lived a secluded life, far removed from the strife that raged in the world about her. It was in those twilight years that she decided to put her feelings down into words. She wrote a letter to the son she bore but never knew, a child that wouldn't enter the world for another 19 centuries. She summoned an old friend to deliver the message through time. And we see her give her message not just to Jeff, but the daughter who is going to be a Geomancer herself. And Jeff tells her that the war is going badly and tells her that Harada has become even more obsessed with finding a way to prolong his life now that he's grown older. 6 years later, Lucinda Mendez assumed the role of Geomancer. Unfortunately for her, her first duty was to bring distressing news to the Harbinger resistance forces. The Earth was now divided off into corporate states, with Harada controlling almost 2/3 of the world. The Hardcore and its corporate allies had suffered devastating losses, but the worst was yet to come. Lucinda sadly informed the assembly of the death of one of their comrades and the realization of their greatest fears. She explained how Orb Industries had fallen, and now Harada sought the life-prolonging capabilities of the XO armor. Eric was determined that its power would never serve the Harbinger Foundation or its master. His final command to the armor was to send it out into the far reaches of space. Where it went, no one knows, even to this day. Harada was too late to stop Eric. His anger over losing the armor was monumental. After decades of conflict, Harada was determined to end Eric's life. "Eric, show yourself! You've frustrated me and my efforts for the last time." "Wrong, Toyo. I still have some fight left in me," a naked Eric says as he wields his sword, running towards Harada. "Always the noble savage, eh? Well, you could die with your precious ideals." And we see Eric plunge his sword through the shoulder of Harada while Harada blows the brains out the back of Eric's head. The two struck simultaneously, each dealing the other a fatal blow. Eric died instantly, but the withered Harada clings to life, using all his psionic abilities to hold himself together until Eric, "Oh my God! Eric, he's beyond your help, woman, but you may prove of some assistance to me." Spurred on by approaching death, Harada successfully transferred his mind into the body of Eric's wife. Okay, if he could transfer his mind into a younger body, then if he knew he could do that, once again, what's the deal? Why is he all, "Oh, I need this long life thing over here"? Just transfer your body from one okay, all right, let's move on. The Resistance was horrified by this news. Their hated enemy had a new lease on life and the means to virtual immortality. And we see the Resistance basically feeling really down, like things are not going to go their way. And then they see Zeppelin come in. For decades, she had been the leader in Archer's peace movement. In the Resistance's darkest hour, she came forward to lead them. Elsewhere, another of history's greatest heroes was facing a tragic loss of his own, and we see Solar, and the woman he's kept alive with his own energies, asks him to die. And he goes along with it. Reluctantly, Solar dissipates the life-giving energy that had kept Gale alive and young for so long. She quietly passed away. What happened next, even the Geomancers aren't sure about it. So, unable to contain his grief, Solar was literally split in two. It's said that the other persona went off to find other planes of reality to explore. The Solar that remained went into seclusion. It wasn't until the alien invasion of 4001 AD that he surfaced again. By the year 2900, the Harbinger War was entering its final stage. The great leader Zeppelin had succeeded in uniting the resistance and from keeping Harada's influence from spreading any further. The remnants of normal humanity had gone underground, protected by a battered and battle-weary hardcore. It was the day before what was to be the final battle, when the resistance was visited by another Geomancer who says that Harada had found the blood of heroes and that the resistance should be prepared to do anything possible to keep him from using it on himself. The battle began, and the losses on both sides were heavy. It was Harbinger against Harbinger, psionic power against psionic power to the death. John Stanchik fought his way into Harada's command center. Nobody could stand against his awesome mental abilities until... Harada! You're finished. The centuries of mind transfers have diluted your powers, old man. You're no match for me now. So, you remind me of your ancestor Peter Stanchik. He was also very powerful and headstrong. And then Peter is blasted from behind and is equally naive. I know that wasn't very sporting, John, but to survive, a man has to do whatever it takes. And John turns. I couldn't agree with you more, you slimy son of a... And we see Harada yell, no, no. And Harada never knew what hit him. We see one of Harada's men ask him, Master Harada, are you all right? Yes, I'm fine. Everything's going to be fine now. A few days later, would someone tell me what's going on? Why did Harada's troops suddenly withdraw from the Western Quadrant? That's nothing. I got 50,000 Harbinger troops in makeshift detention camps. They're surrendering in droves. I don't get it. And where's Stanchek? Nobody's heard from him in days. I believe I can answer all your questions. My God, it's Harada. It's a trap. No, it's not what you think. The mind of John Stanchek now inhabits Harada's body. I know John's vibes. He's in there. That means we've won. The world was now controlled by the Resistance. John would slowly dismantle the Harbinger's forces and restore order to the planet. The beleaguered hardcore forces began a mass evacuation shortly before Harada's fall. With their few surviving starships, they left the Earth far behind, refusing to acknowledge any message sent from Earth. They were gone for good. All that remained on Earth of humankind had isolated themselves in the corporate state of Japan. It was during my training to become a geomancer that Anna Kawani first told me of the blood of heroes. In their year 3050, the island's central computer became free will thinking and acting independently. She explained how Japan's electronic network grew ever larger until, by 2900 AD, it became one continuous structure that covered the entire island state. The Japanese people dubbed their mechanical keeper Grandmother because she benevolently cared for their needs. But a movement to restore human control sprung up. The anti-grannies, as they were called, were determined to find a way to destroy Grandmother. To Grandmother, they were an infection in her body that needed to be expelled. Recalling the heroic legend of Bloodshot, she created the Rise in his image. They served as a symbol of strength to the Japanese people. In the year 3216, the anti-grannies had obtained the blood and were searching for a suitable host to receive it. Grandmother was fearful because if someone was to receive the blood, its power would give them mental control over any electronic intelligence, including hers. She wasted little time responding to that threat. Sho Sugino, the second generation of Rai, wrestled the silicon blood away from Granny's enemies. Grandmother was determined that no one would ever be allowed to use its power against her. The blood of heroes was stored deep within the substructure of Japan, in an impregnable vault Grandmother had constructed. Anna recalled to me the events of the second alien invasion in 4001 and how the Steel Island rose into space like a monstrous dragon to defeat the intergalactic threat. But it was greatly damaged in battle. Returning to Earth was now impossible, so Grandmother placed Japan in orbit around the planet. Grandmother soon departed, leaving Japan to finally govern itself after a millennium of her rule. The rest of the story you know. Japan fell to Earth during the Unity conflict, leaving its people devastated and without a country. The line of Rai is dead. Torunakata, the last of the Rais, died in battle with Mother God. Japan is in its darkest hour, my friend. And so we visit the crash site of old Japan, and there's a gentleman saying that, wow, all of this leads to me, and the Geomancer leads him through a labyrinth. He wonders, are you sure this is the way? And he says, the walls don't lie. They keep heading us in this direction. And there it is, the blood of heroes. It's time to take out your knife and slice open your wrist. Are you crazy? Unless you decrease the volume of your blood, the pressure will rupture your arteries within seconds of injection. Don't worry, the blood will quickly heal you. Trust me, for everyone's sake. And so the samurai slashes his wrists. You are very brave. And then we see the Geomancer stab him with the blood, and minutes later, it's incredible. My wrists healed almost instantly. The blood of heroes is magic. It talks to me. I can feel it. Geomancer, what have I become? Protector of the future, my friend. Yesterday you were merely Takao Konish, but today you are the last Rai. Dun, dun, dun. So there you go, gang. That is the very first full comic book and cameo appearance of Bloodshot. frankly, I like it. I think it holds up. I was a fan of Valiant back in the 90s. I thought they told some solid stories with some decent art. I think Bart Sears was the dude who was all over the place for Valiant, and I think he nailed it, seriously. Granted, if you're looking for a straight-up Bloodshot issue, this is not it. This told more of the blood of the heroes and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of funny because I don't think that they really paid attention to the past or the future stories that this one lined up in the modern-day incarnation of Valiant. Anyway, yeah, it's not as good as it used to be. For a while, it was kicking all sorts of butt, but still, at least you got the back issues, and as far as that goes, this is still a good back issue. But that's just my opinion. What is yours? Let me know in the comments below what you think about all of this, and don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell if you haven't done it already, making sure that notifications are set on all for Google and YouTube, and check out one of the videos that are popping up right about now. They're pretty cool too. If you don't mind helping out the channel, going over to Patreon or to Ko-Fi, drop $1 in the till, helps keep the lights on, helps keep making videos for you. Thank everybody who's already done that. To everyone, all the true believers, thank you very, very much for watching.